morning. Good morning. I'm a little bit cold, so y'all please forgive me. So now we're going to get back to Bible discussion. Today's topic is going to be a difficult topic. It's difficult because it's been in debate. It seems like forever, and so now we're going to go ahead and get it tackled, and we're going to prove, hopefully with simplicity, with a little bit of easiness, of how God exists. Okay. And basically we're going to start off explaining, first of all, why people don't believe in the first place. And of course, the main reason why people don't believe that God exists is, number one, because they can't see him. You figure, hey, I can't see him. Nope, don't believe in him. Okay. And the second one they say is that there's no evidence of a God, no evidence. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and tackle these two like now. Okay. First of all, when we talk about invisibility, something that we can't see. Well, obviously we believe in air, right? We can't see air, but we believe in it. Scientists can do some calculations and say, hey, air exists. And this is why, because of these calculations. Okay. Another thing, gravity. We can't see gravity, but we believe in gravity. It's invisible. It's an invisible force, but we believe in it. We believe in it because scientists can do a calculation and say it exists. Check out this calculation. That's how we know it exists, because of this calculation. So already invisibility is a moot point, because just because you can't see something doesn't mean it doesn't exist, right? I mean, if we believe in air, we believe in gravity, then obviously we believe in things that we can't see. Okay. So really, that's a moot point. All right. So now let's move on to the big one. The big one. That's evidence. Okay. So the biggest thing that atheists say is there's no evidence of a God. Yet every time we bring up creation, they say, no. You can't use creation. Okay. You can't use creation. There though it's around us and we see it, we're not allowed to use it. That's what they say. Okay. And then also, of course, the Bible. So really there are two evidences: creation and the Bible. So let's look at creation first. All right. So in Genesis 1, we read about the different things that were created. Heaven, earth, water, plants, people, trees, etc., etc. So at least we can all agree, atheists and non-atheists, we can all agree that these things were created. All right. So point number one, we agree that they were created. If they exist in this earth or in this universe, it was created. Right. Okay. So step number two. Step number two is, how was it created? Was it created by accident, or was it created on purpose? Now, we know if something was created by accident, it's random, sporadic. There's no consistency. There's no control. There shouldn't be a design, shouldn't be a purpose. It was random, right? And where anything is random, there's no mind. There's no mind behind it, right? Okay. But where there is control, where there is intention, purpose, design, consistency, there has to be a mind behind that. You cannot have control and no mind behind that controlling it. Okay. So it's like, even with computers and robots and technology, yeah, it can function, but it still needs a human being to control it, to give it direction. Okay. So let's look at the things that were created. Let's look at the earth. There is absolutely nothing random about the earth. The earth is able to spin and rotate around the sun consistently. It doesn't randomly bump into other planets. It doesn't randomly bump into the sun. It hasn't happened. Year after year, there is consistency. There is control. But see, an atheist can't explain that to you. They can't say how it's possible that the earth can rotate and spin around the sun year after year, and every single day spin on its own axis day after day. They can't explain that, but it would make sense that something that has that kind of control has a being to control it, some kind of being controlling it. Okay, let's look at another thing. Let's look at human beings. Let's look at our bodies. Obviously, there's some sort of design in our bodies, the way the organs function, the way we can move about and think and breathe, the fact that we can procreate, the fact that we can do that, that spells control. Okay? That's not random. Okay? So if we were randomly created, like the atheists like to believe, then we would not be able to procreate ourselves. Same thing with the trees. Trees would not be able to recreate themselves. Okay? We'd only have just a few trees, and once they're dead, and they'd have to accidentally get created again. Right? But that's not how it works. There's actually a design to trees, just like there's a design to human beings. Okay? But atheists can't explain that design. They can't explain that control. Water. Let's look at water. Now, we know that each continent is surrounded by water, vast amount of water. Why is it that the continents aren't flooded with this water? How is it possible that this water is staying put in a certain spot, not overflowing the land? Okay? If water was random, we know that water spills. We know that water floods. Like when you pour it out, it spreads. Now we got all this massive amount of water surrounding each continent. Why hasn't it flooded each continent? How is it possible that we can even have thriving life and this water stay put? Now remember, atheists like to use gravity and all this as their explanation. But remember, gravity is invisible. It's an invisible force. You can't see it. You can calculate it, but you can't see it. It is invisible. And so really, technically speaking, an atheist shouldn't even believe in gravity or air, to be honest, because they're invisible. Remember, they're invisible. Okay? Okay, so let's move forward. Now, when we look at creation, you have to ask the question, is this random or is it done on purpose? Is it random? Is it sporadic? Is it inconsistent? If life existed like that, then yes, I could believe that there's no God. I could believe it because everything's random. There's no pattern. There's no control. There's no consistency. There's no design, no intention. But, unfortunately for the atheist, all those things exist. There is control. There is pattern. There is design. The body is detailed and intricately designed. And you can see that. I mean, you can see that with your own eyes. You can see that. It's common sense. You can see it with your own eyes. And so until an atheist can explain creation better than what the Bible does, I'm going to continue to believe the Bible because it makes more sense. It makes more sense that there is a mind or a being, this really intelligent being that could create all these things and control it and keep it controlled. I mean, remember, if the earth was not controlled, we would be running into other planets. If the earth was not controlled, we would be running into the sun. And in fact, there would be more meteors hitting this earth. There'd be more comets and asteroids and all these astronomical objects that are out there should be hitting the earth way more often, but it's not. It's not. I mean, you would think in a random world, everything would be random. Then I could understand it. So remember, an atheist, most of them believe in this Big Bang theory, which is really an accident. They explain everything as being an accident. But when you look at the creation itself, there's nothing that spells accident about it. Nothing. I mean, the fact that we're not floating on this earth right now, but yet once you leave the earth, you're floating around, right? Because of the gravity, the invisible force, right? Okay. So let's move forward, okay? So we got all this evidence, which is the creation, right before us, that the atheists can't explain how it's able to function the way that it functions, how it has this tremendous amount of control about it. They can't explain it, right? All they can say is it's by accident, it's random, it's sporadic, when we know good and well it's not. We can look at it and tell that it's not. Okay. So evidence number one, there is creation. Creation does exist. Creation is before us every single day. The fact that we are ourselves are proof of that. Our lives are proof of that. Okay. So proof number one, creation exists. Creation is controlled, and it's controlled by someone with a mind to be able to control it. You can see it for yourself. I mean, the evidence is right before us every single day. Okay. So let's talk about the second evidence, the Bible, the one that atheists say is not acceptable. Now, remember, all the Bible is written testimony. It's actually, if you want to be technical about it, it is an autobiography. Bible is an autobiography of people who written down things that they've seen, things that they've heard. I mean, they were there in the midst. They were there in the mix. They were there in the midst. Okay. So really, this is an autobiography, and whether you choose to believe it or not, it's your decision. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of this has already been proven to be true. Like, we do know that the Babylonians existed, the Assyrians, the Romans, the Greeks, the Persians, the Jews, of which many of them still exist today, right? So it's proof. We have artifacts. We have historical documents that support really a lot of what's already said in here. We have maps, historical maps, artifacts that show that these people and places did exist. Okay. So let's focus on the part that the atheists have a hard time believing. Okay. And that's the prophecies and the miracles. That's the majority of their dispute or debate. They say that, okay, no, impossible. Man can't walk on water. It's a lie. It's impossible. Okay. They say, no, people raising from the dead. Nah, can't believe it. Nope, ain't real. Okay. So remember now, what is impossible is simply we haven't figured out a way to do it yet. That's all that impossibility is. We haven't figured out a way to do it yet. Because remember, 200 years ago, it was impossible to fly. But now we're in airplanes and we're flying back and forth from country to country and state to state, right? I mean, it was impossible 2 years ago, but it's possible now. Okay. Technology proves that what is impossible is simply we haven't figured out how to do it yet. And just because we don't know how to do it doesn't mean somebody else hasn't figured out how to do it. Okay. And all this is testimony of things that people have saw. And so, yes, yes, our God is invisible. He can reveal himself to whomever he chooses. And these are written testimonies of people who did converse with him, who some of them actually conversed and saw him. That's all this is. It's testimonies of people who did witness, who did see it for themselves, and they wrote it down. Now, the question is whether you choose to believe what they wrote or not. I mean, that's basically what it boils down to. So really, what it boils down to is there is evidence, there is proof, but the same people who deny it, no matter what you do, no matter what you say, no matter what they see, they're still not going to choose to believe, regardless. Like the prophecies. All right, well, we already know about Jerusalem being destroyed by the Romans. That was a prophecy that had already happened. We already know about the different wars that happened between the Babylonians, the Assyrians, the Greeks, all those. I mean, we have historical documents and artifacts to show that these things have already happened. Okay, so now there's at least four prophecies that have yet to be proven. Four. Okay, we know that this war that's supposed to happen, this huge war that's supposed to happen near beloved city, which I say is Jerusalem, that hasn't happened yet since this was written. It hasn't happened yet. So even once that war happens, they're still going to say, they're going to make up some kind of excuse. Okay. There's another prophecy that talks about this huge lake of fire. Okay. That this whole earth and world is going to be destroyed by it. Okay. So even if they're there witnessing it themselves, they're going to come up with some kind of excuse, some other kind of explanation, even though it was prophesied in the Bible that it was going to happen. Okay. So so really it doesn't matter what kind of proof and evidence that they're looking for. Once it's in their face, they're still going to deny it. I mean, actually, that's what they've been doing the whole time. They've been denying it. Okay. Um, but let's talk about those who have difficulty believing because of circumstances. Okay. So there are people who are atheists because they grew up maybe in a religious background. They grew up maybe in an Islamic household or Christian household or a Jewish household. And, we know, prime example, that these religions do not condone homosexuality. Okay. And because these religions don't condone it, well, it's just easier to say, you know what, God doesn't exist. It's just easier because then they don't have to feel guilty. They don't have to feel bad. And they don't have to feel like there's going to be this judgment day coming. Okay. But my response to that is, what if? And I know that they've asked themselves the questions. They had to have asked themselves the question. What if the things that are written in that Bible are true? What if? What if there's going to be a judgment day? Then what? Then what are you going to say? Okay. And so what they do is in their minds, they have to put it out of their minds, because if there is a day of judgment, and you have to ask the question, okay, why would a God create a day of judgment? Well, look at all the things that are going on, all the things that are corrupt, that are hurting other people, okay, that are going on. You can't really let that go on forever and not have to give an account for it. Okay. And thankfully, because he does exist, people are going to have to give an account. Okay. And I lean on it. I depend on it. I mean, not just for myself, but for everybody. Okay. So, what about the people that don't believe in God because of a tragic event that's happened in their life? Maybe, they experienced an extremely horrific, tragic death of a loved one. Maybe they themselves were raped. Something awful has happened, and they're like, wait a minute, how could a loving God exist and not stop that from happening? Okay. And the simple answer to that is, if you go back to Genesis, he created human beings to make their own choices. He did. And if he stopped every single human being from making wrong decisions, we would cease to be humans. We would be robots. He didn't want robots, and only because we are allowed to make our own decisions, and only because we know what's right and what's wrong, some of us are going to choose to do wrong regardless. They're going to choose to do wrong because they can, right? And obviously, if he's going to allow people to make wrong decisions, we're going to have to feel the effects of it. And not just other people, ourselves, because we've all made wrong decisions. We've all made mistakes. And somebody else has had to suffer from it, from our bad decisions. Okay. So really, we have to look at ourselves. We have to look at the human race. Yeah, it's easy to blame God and say, oh, it's all his fault. But no, let's put it back on us. Put it back on us. There wouldn't be cancer if manufacturers weren't poisoning our air, poisoning our water, poisoning our food. We wouldn't even have to worry about cancer if we put a stop to that now, right? We wouldn't have to worry about murder. I mean, think about it. These rules that's in these Bibles. Let's look at just the 10 Commandments alone. If we would stop lying to each other, if we would stop stealing from each other, if we would stop messing with other people's spouses, if we would honor our parents and love them, this world would already be a better place. Already. I mean, he set aside some rules for us to follow, but we don't always follow it. We do what we want to do. I mean, really. So really today's lesson was about proving that God does exist, and his evidence is all around us. We are in fact that evidence. The earth is the evidence. The sun, the very things that are talked about in Genesis 1, they do exist, and they exist in a controlled manner, in a controlled atmosphere. It's all controlled. And you can look with your own eyes and see that it's controlled. But also, another piece of evidence, which is the Bible, which is testimony, people's written testimony. And I'm not one to call somebody a liar simply because I can't do something, but simply because I don't have the ability to be able to walk on water doesn't, I can't call that person a liar for what they said that they saw. If they said that they saw somebody walk on water, who am I to call them a liar? Okay. Now, because someone exists today, and if they tell me they walked on water, cool, let me see it. Cool, let me see it. Okay? But I'm not going to call them a liar simply because I didn't live there back in that time and I didn't see it myself. Again, what the things that are impossible is simply things we don't know how to do yet. Doesn't mean somebody else hasn't figured out a way to do it. Okay? So today was more discussion and less actual scriptures. If you go back to Genesis chapter 1 and read creation, and just look at creation, all you have to do is just look at the earth, look at other human beings, look at animals, look at trees, look at water, look at the land. That should be enough to convince you there is a supreme being out there that's controlling these things and keeping it from losing control, keeping it from the earth from exploding, keeping the earth from running into other planets. And there would be more human beings with like 5 heads and 8 legs, that would be random, right? But there's more design, more intention, and less random. I mean, there's really not a whole lot of random things on this earth. Everything has design, purpose, and intention. But anyways, so hopefully this lesson has helped you today. I welcome your comments. I welcome your questions. This will be on YouTube under Help Me For I Have Sinned. It will be on Twitter under Miss B 2015. So yeah, if you have any questions, by all means, I welcome them. Talk to you. Peace.